What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the OT Unleashed podcast. I'm your host, Erik Johnson, and I am so jazzed because we are continuing this education conversation with one of my close, dear friends and my director at Tarleton State University, Dr. Shannon Levandowski. Welcome to the podcast, Shannon.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here to talk
Yeah.
about this topic.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, for those of you listening right now, the reason why we're having this conversation is because Shannon had an opportunity to listen to our previous podcast with Todd Webb from Alliance Orthopedics and talking about OT education. And one of the things that I know that, personally for me, it was that I didn't really know a lot of the answers. I know some of the answers. I've been around the block for a minute, but I had a great conversation with Shannon over the past 24 hours about, some of the real research, the real statistics, the real deal about some of the things that I didn't know. And so I wanted to bring you on to have a conversation to not necessarily set everything straight, but also just to give some context behind some of the statistics, the numbers, the reason outside of orthopedics, outside of anatomy, outside of theories and everything. Like, what does it all mean? And so, first things first, tell us just a little bit about yourself. You've got a very robust background. You've been all around the block. You ran field work nationwide for a while. Give us a little background. Where'd you come from?
I'm not around the block, but I don't know if anybody will really catch that joke. But we've been in OT about the same amount of time, and that's going to come into play when we're talking about this topic, because it provides a little bit of a historical lens. But let's see, got several degrees in OT, and then a degree in 2 degrees in education. So I am very passionate about teaching and also teaching at OT level. So I've worked at a couple of different institutions. I was a professional advisor, which is someone who really stewarded students into clinical roles at UW-Milwaukee. And then I was fieldwork coordinator at Texas Woman's for a while. And while I was there, I served on the Academic Leadership Council for AOTA in the leadership role of academic fieldwork coordinator. At the time, it also included capstone coordinator, but it's since split.
Yeah.
And now I'm the founding director of a program at Tarleton State, which is in the A&M system. And it's the program for the system in the state of Texas, where we work together. And I also will note, just for the sake of this conversation, I also serve as a ACOTE reviewer. And so not only have I lived in programs and experienced curriculum changes and all of the things, curriculum, and why we sometimes do things we like and we don't like and we have to do them, but I also have had to review other people's work and have done that for a while.
So needless to say, you've had your eyes on a lot of this stuff for a long time, and so I'm excited to have you because first of all, I trust you, and I know you. Our brains are very wired, and I think we both share a passion for the profession very similarly as well. So now the previous conversation had to do, Todd and I were talking about where did the anatomy go? Why are we not doing this anymore? And why isn't it an emphasis? And why isn't it in all these programs? And one of the things that you had mentioned to me is that I think there's a reason behind what we thought, but you knew it, and I kind of just, theorized it. So let's take it back, because I think you have a better perspective on how we've gone from, or a perception of anatomy being in OT programs to now. So rewind the clock, circa early 2000s, late 1990s.
1990s, yes.
And why? So I'm going to ask you directly. So why do you think, or share your experience with OT school, anatomy, and all those things, but also like why does it seem like we are now focusing more on other things than that anatomy part?
Okay, so that's a
Or
2-point question. There's a
yeah,
50% chance I'm going to forget number two. So I'll start with,
I'll come
oh,
back.
what was number one? So no, for real. What was number one?
No, let's go back. So, what was your OT school like? You went
Okay,
to OT
so let me talk.
school,
So
yeah,
let me orient us a little bit. So what we're talking about is in the previous podcast is the guest is talking about really wanting more robust anatomy, more robust studies on this, and then he refers to standard B 1.1.
yeah,
And so when he referred to that, kind of sent alarms in my brain because I'm like, okay, here's the deal with B 1.1. B 1.1 lists anatomy, it lists biomechanics and some psychs and some foundational things
yeah,
that we as student or as educators would like to see as foundational content before an individual enters the program. Can you choose to teach it in the program? Sure, but it also could be a prereq. So that's kind of why we're starting here in this conversation. So let's rewind to when I went to OT school and you went to OT school.
yeah,
And there is a little bit of a there's a little bit of there's a difference for me academically because when I had already graduated with my education degree, but I went on because I wanted to be a school-based therapist. And that's another kind of point to point out, not all OTs are eager to kind of go into rehab ortho models. I was a school-based
yeah.
therapist, pediatric focus. So that's another piece to this that maybe we touch on, maybe
A
not.
little bit
But
later.
um the other, so okay, so it's circa 1999, do the
Yeah,
math,
yeah,
and I want to go to OT school. And yes, there were less OT schools, but there were way more kids in OT
yeah,
school. My class had 72 students, and at that time, that was um not not the biggest it had been. It
yeah,
actually was starting to scoot down as a result of rehab um, policy change that happened in the 90s, but that's a different conversation.
yeah,
So when you wanted to go to OT school, you had to know you had to be kind of like a pre-med back in that day, okay? You had to be kind of a pre-med track, and that you
yeah,
had to take your biologies, I did biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, um, A&P
yeah,
with cadaver A&P, and then cadaver muscular scale. Now, I want to point out all of that was done as an undergrad, and I had to have at least a B. And and this is kind of, and it was very competitive. So then I'm going to kind of switch a little bit, if it's okay, on why this
yeah,
is different now.
yeah,
Um, Reason this may, in my opinion, based on my experience, and we can talk about what we are doing to target this. But in my experience, both at the clinical, so when I'm fieldwork coordinator, I'm dealing with students transitioning to clinic and hearing back from clinicians. So I've got a lot of experience in
yeah,
hearing about this, as well as someone who had a blank slate on build a program.
yeah,
So that being said, what I am seeing is perhaps some undergraduate, I don't want to, an undergraduate watering down essentially, or
sure, sure,
perhaps some shifts in
yeah,
what was, we taught, okay, the culture has shifted. When we
mm-hmm,
were going to pre-med, or it was like pre-med, pre-engineering or whatever, there were
mm-hmm,
courses that back in the day were absolutely intended to weed you out. That was the
yeah,
purpose of it. The purpose was to weed. And so that is not the culture anymore in higher
no,
education. So what happens though as a result is the rigor kind of shifts. And
yeah,
I'm not saying that students aren't performing as well as they did in the 90s, but they're not being tested the same way. They're
yeah,
not producing information the same way. And if I'm just going to be honest, they're not coming to graduate programs, whether it be master's or doctorate, at the same level of preparation. Now,
yeah,
there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. Um, but I've been in the biz long enough to see a difference. And
yeah,
so that does, then the question kind of took his talking point. Is it OT school's fault, or is it undergraduate? And you're graduating with an undergraduate degree in some of these sciences. You should walk into OT, PT, PA, all these
Yeah.
programs with a pretty good um, foundation.
Foundational, no,
And you
yeah.
really should have had cadaver.
Yeah, and I will, to that point, and one thing that I didn't mention yesterday that is that my OT program was I started it before I finished my bachelor's degree. Like how we had it was 2.5 years, and but your senior year in college was your first year of OT
Mhm.
school. And in that senior year, it included your gross anatomy, it included your neuroanatomy, and really that was my last year of undergrad. And
Mhm.
that was really interesting. It's really telling. And I think to your point too is that back in the day when to get into OT school was so challenging. I we had to do AMP 1 with lab, AMP 2 with lab. We had to do, abnormal psychology. We had to do psych statistics. We had to do, there was a lot. I feel like there was so much more rigor to get into OT school, like you said. And I think that that's really telling because I think there's a lot of programs that are either waiving some requirements or it's just not as hard to necessarily get through those requirements because I think that we're, I don't know, approaching grading a little softer than we once did. If I'm being, truthful. And if you again rewind the clock, and I was a recruiter for the Army, looking at OT programs, looking at students, and I would always ask how many students are applying to these programs. And I will tell you, every program I went to, it was 400 for 30 positions, 600 for 50 positions. It was tons. You had massive applications. And so you could get the brightest, the most motivated, the highest potential for success students to come through there and then succeed. And what I see now in a lot of programs is that not that we don't get great students, but the criteria to get into an OT school is almost softer, a little bit less, and maybe the
Well,
rigor is
even
a
if
little
it's
bit
the
less.
same, even if it's the same, the issue we're running into is a huge discrepancy among what kind of AMP did you get before you walked in the door.
Yeah,
So
yeah, great
AMP
point.
for the most part has not, okay, well, AMP hasn't changed, right? Like it's the
We are
same
who
as
we
it
are.
was.
Yeah,
But the way, I mean, even even access to cadavers has changed since
mm,
1990s and early 2000s.
yeah.
So even, I mean, our own institution had I don't actually know if you're aware of this, but our own institution had reasons around ethical issues around having cadavers in our
Oh,
program, which
really?
is why so that's happened. And so there's access issues to cadavers that are different.
Yeah,
And there's some institutions with ethical reasoning
yeah,
around that. So in ours, we obviously have these advanced things that are just, I forget what they're called, but they're the
yeah,
advanced AMP labs that are simulating
yeah,
cadaver to accommodate for that
yeah,
ethical reasoning at the institution. But anatomy hasn't changed. But I mean, the student learning, the student retention, the student application, that's
yeah,
changed.
yeah,
And that kind of leads us in a different direction for the conversation is kind of how are the students now learning? And we talked about that there's more to come on that, but that
yeah,
matters. These
yeah,
students that are coming to us do not learn and retain information the same way that we did. We
yeah,
we had the luxury, dare I say, to be bored,
yeah,
and that is not kids now just don't. I mean, they just don't do that. The idea of being bored actually stimulates thought and creativity. And what if you didn't have the option of getting online and talking with friends. I mean, maybe mid
yeah,
2000s you did, but really you you kind of just studied and did your thing, and
Yeah.
testing was right there with an instructor, and it was
Yeah.
tough. It was just different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it too.
Yeah. So let's go. I want to fast forward now. So we mentioned maybe transitioning from some of the anatomy space, and maybe there's a role that undergrad plays in that. And I
Mhm.
think it's a great point. Not only a good point, but a great point. Because again, one of the things that you have done at our program, which I just love the fact that you did this, was you introduced this boot camp prior to them coming in to kind of get them on the same playing field. But not only did you introduce this, from what I found out just yesterday, you're doing research to see if this actually works. Is
Well, we're
that
gonna
correct?
try. Yeah, we're gonna try. We had it was a I don't, yeah, we're going to try to do it. So our lead, I mean, it's pretty fancy pants. We have a lead anatomist. And so
Yeah.
that individual, you alluded to it yesterday, is part of actually PTMPA
Yeah.
faculty. And so that person is solely responsible for anatomy delivery in our programs. And so so rewind a little bit, part of our summer semester, the introductory semester into OT school was intentionally designed to level the playing field. And
Yeah.
I had just kind of alluded to the fact that there are different students coming from different places, lots of different learning experience, all of that. So what my response to that in creating this program was to level the playing field. So
Yeah.
you redo biomechanics, you're redoing neuroanatomy, you're redoing lifespan, which includes the psychologies, and
Yeah.
then an intro to OT course.
Mm.
There's something else, but I forgot. Oh, no. Oh, abnormal
Interdisciplinary.
psych. No,
Oh yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the DSM
Yeah.
course. So all of these are your leveling. So before you walk in the door, the other professor and I decided, hey, why don't we take this anatomy boot camp that he's created with his technologies, and it's not going to replace cadaver. It's intended to alert students and reignite students awareness to, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to OT school, you need to get your anatomy back on your mind.
Yeah.
And so it's a bunch of great modules. It's really great. So our goal is to see, does some of the questions he has done, his dissertation work was on this from a different programmatic. So it's very valuable to us in this conversation. But I think he did it with PT, obviously, before. But the intention of the boot camp is to the research questions, sorry, are aligned with, what did you have before? Did this help? Do you feel more confident after boot camp? Then we'll ask again after summer, did you find it helpful?
Yeah.
Um, and I anticipate that we will see some positive results. What I'm more eager to receive is feedback
Yeah.
about, I never knew any of this, or I knew all of this, or whatever, because I think that will help us continue the conversation on that missing piece, right?
Yeah.
Do we, are students prepared or not prepared in a way that we need to continue to look at changing? And that's probably part of what I would say is a strength of what we're doing. We
Yeah.
do change based on student response, and we
Yeah.
do it as quickly as we can. So
Yeah.
if we found out that students were not prepared for the level of anatomy that's actually expected for graduate programming, especially with some of these degree paths, then maybe we relook at what that summer looks like and prepare them better.
Yeah.
So, but we have to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, I've got two hot questions for you. The first one is how do you measure success in your program? Like, what is
Oh,
success to you as a student rolls out the door?
okay. So my answer is going to look different. I think I could ask you the same question considering we work together. But
Yeah,
um,
I've got some thoughts too. So,
so my person, because I am a holistic practitioner. I'm not ortho. I am more behaviorist. I'm more mental health, um, at parent training, giving the fishermen the ability to fish themselves. That's
yeah.
more my row, and I think that's the beauty of OT. So what makes a student successful out of my program, and I think you would agree, having seen the way it's, and it's not
Structured.
mine anymore, it's
It's
everybody's
yours.
now, but the way that I developed it was I want the practitioners leaving our program to be very well versed in what is an OT, what can I bring to the table that is different and unique and distinct than anyone else.
Mm.
So in our program, we are integrating innovative design, which we
Yeah.
talk about in the AT course. That's by design. That was put in there on purpose. Accessibility, that is very distinctly OT. Accessibility, design,
Hmm.
innovation,
Yeah.
gradation, and
Yeah.
occupation. If our students come out of the door being able to recite any of that, or being able to look, even more so, be able to go into a location in the community where it, for us, OTs do not exist. So we are literally creating individuals that will go make their own jobs. And so my student success story is several of them coming back and saying, there wasn't an OT job on the board, but I have the skill set and I have the confidence in who I am that I was able to fill that need and lean into my skill set as an OT, and I'm doing that job. And
Yeah.
so that is, and I'll tell you where I got a lot of that energy from is I think it was we'll have to do a fact check like other podcasts. But I think it was
Yeah.
Dr. Amy Lamb that
Oh, yeah.
she spoke to us several times. And many times she talked about we needed to create innovators and entrepreneurs and the kinds of the kinds of students that can go and find their own job. We do not need to just be spitting out, just
It's okay.
rehab therapists.
Yeah.
OT is so much bigger than that. We're
Yeah.
so holistic. Yes, we also get lost in the dirty details. If you look at our ACOTE standards, that is clearly where we have activity analyzed our entire profession. I get it. That's who we are. But we have a very important contribution to our community and the people we serve, which is more than clinic based. And so
Yeah.
for me, that's success.
So follow up.
Okay.
Well, let me actually, I'm going to follow up with answering that question
Oh, okay.
on my side because, like, I think you are also like, how do you value success, Eric?
How
I
do
just
you
asked.
value?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think I value it a couple ways. I think it's easy to go to a space that says OT success is that you successfully get these students through their program, they're able to complete field work, and then pass the MBCOT, right? If
check,
we're
check, check.
Right. I mean, if we're a
That's
business
everyone.
model, if it's a business model, you made the money, we got our students through, we kept the money the whole time, the university makes it, and we created these students and they did all the things we asked them to do. And now they're out and doing things, right? So objectively, those are three pillars of very easy, objective, data-driven success that the programs will look at.
Mm-hmm.
But
To me,
you
those
and
are
I,
understood.
yeah, those are understood. But you and I are also very different in a space that says, like, I care so much more about the student and how our education reflects in them leaving this space. And so I think for me, success is that I have prepared my students in a way that they're able to not necessarily clinically reason right off the bat, because I think that takes clinical practice, but they're able to pivot when a challenge comes at them. So, you're out in field work, you have a CVA or maybe a spinal cord injury, and all of a sudden new spinal cord injury has a bowel movement that you had this whole plan and you were written it all out. It was going to be beautiful. And they had a bowel movement. And you're like, what I want to make sure is that my student is like, that's okay. You know what? Let's pivot from this treatment session today. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about bowel and bladder. We're going to talk about lower body dressing. We're talking about personal hygiene. We're going to talk about transfers, because we can pivot on that with maintaining the integrity of the treatment session. And then also, how that patient feels about what just happened, and so
Empathetic.
I think yeah, the empathy part of it, which does come back to some theory and feels, right? So I think that I think that my level of success is that I've created somebody who would be able to go out, create it. I haven't created anybody. I have contributed to my students' success so that they will able to go out and confidently practice and receive, failure with grace, and then continue to grow as a clinician or whoever they end up being.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that would be like the greatest compliment to the program. Of course, pass all the tests, do all the things, sure, all
That's
that
an
stuff.
understood.
But
I think that I would wonder, have you ever done Clifton Strengths or no? Okay, well, our students do it and I've done it. One of the things that is one of my strengths is I like to create a sense of significance in my work. So that means I want those that come like that I work with,
yeah,
which includes students, to leave a legacy. So that's very much who I am. So I love my work as an OT. I love my identification in that role.
yeah,
And so I want the students that I have contributed to their learning to also, I want to have left that mark, just like people before me left
yeah,
that mark.
yeah,
That's like, I know what OT is. I don't need, um, I don't need letters behind my name. I don't need
yeah,
to know XYZ. I know what I do. I know what I can
yeah,
contribute. And if I can create a confident group of kids, students, sorry, that can go out and just, make amazing therapists, or maybe they don't even, maybe they move into a space, we've got amazing people out there that are OTs by education that are
yeah,
doing things that don't require necessarily their licensure. They're using those skill sets and they're
yeah,
still identifying as OT, but they're
yeah,
not billing, if you
yeah.
will. And those are
Well,
the spaces that I like to see.
and I think like as kind of coming on, I love that you made that point. And as coming on the board of directors, one of the things that I really want to emphasize is to acknowledge those really hard. Like you said, there's entrepreneurs, and actually recently I've talked to some like big entrepreneurs that have even said like they don't feel like they're part of the profession
Right.
anymore.
And they
And I
should
think
feel that
it's
way.
but I think it's a big part on us to make sure that's like you are one of us. Like
Hmm.
I want you a part of us. Like just because you have found yourself in a non-traditional setting doesn't mean you don't represent who we are, what our hearts are, what our motivations are, all those things. And so I love that you said it. So I want to transition because I do want to keep the conversation going. Second hot take question for you. One of the questions that Todd had, my previous guest, was why are all, and he's asked this several times in the
Hmm.
last 24 hours,
Hmm.
why are OT programs so different? Like he's like,
Oh,
I just
that's
went through all
intentional.
these. Well, hold on a second. I went through all these curriculums, is what he said, and they're all different. None of them are like. And why don't we have programs that are like the same? I was hoping maybe you could answer that.
Well, first of all, we have to be different, but I'll speak to that in a minute. Second of all, we aren't like our profession is not cookie cutter. There's
Yeah,
literally nothing about what we do that can be, and
replicated.
I hate to lean into a space of our friends, but we have friends that are in our therapy department, if you will, that are a bit more cookie cutter. You learn this and then you do this and then you do this and then maybe you
Yeah,
go back and then maybe you go forward. That's
yeah,
not our world. We were never meant to be those people. We weren't. We were always meant to be the movers, the shakers, the innovators, the creators. We're
yeah,
creatives. And
yeah,
so I love to see therapists lean into those spaces. Now,
yeah,
that being said, there's a reason I mean, everybody knows that the hand therapists, they're all rock stars, but they're also very protocol driven. And
yeah,
so that's not my space. They're very, they're
yeah.
very valuable to our community. But the piece around wait, what was it that you said? Like,
Well, like
why are we
why
so
are the
different?
curriculum so yeah
So we literally, and I don't have it in front of me because guess what? On a Friday night, to timestamp this, on a Friday night, when I don't sit around with my standards, But part of what is important when you design a curriculum, which is the case for any curriculum, you
Hmm.
actually have to talk about what makes you different. And the reason, and you must go back to the mission and vision of your institution when you do that. And that's part of the curriculum design standard.
Yeah,
I'm not going to spout off numbers, it doesn't matter.
that's okay.
But what matters is so in our case, at our institution, and you can think about previous institutions where we both have shared experiences, at our institution, our vision and our mission at our institution is to innovate and to
Mm.
create transformational leaders.
Yeah,
And so that's why you're going to see that in our
yeah,
program. You're going to see a lot, like we have, like, we've got a couple of different things that are very different. You do not see kind of a traditional path, and that's intentional because
yeah.
we're speaking to our institution's mission. And you have to make that alignment when you're creating. If you don't, you get a big X, a big red X. So you don't want to do that. So that is the answer
Yeah.
on why aren't we all the same? We were never supposed to be the same.
Yeah, I actually have a couple other thoughts on that too, because, you know, Tarleton State's occupational therapy program, our doctorate program, it exists because there is a huge healthcare disparity in West Texas. And so our focus is on rural health, which is how when you design the curriculum, you very much intended a lot of these students that we have to be able to go to their communities that are small, that have
Mm-hmm.
one or two healthcare providers, and to be able to serve the community.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was in New York, this wouldn't even matter. Like, you have
Right.
thousands of people. If I went to Dallas or Fort Worth, there's thousands of healthcare workers. But, you go into like Odessa or like these, small communities in West Texas, you don't have this. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you design our program and it looks different than other programs, is because we have
That's
to
our
be.
need.
Yeah, we want to be the window to healthcare to West Texas. And our need, we're meeting, the population and the need where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually spills all over the world too. And it's actually a beautiful thing because we're studying cultures that have ruled healthcare disparities. We hired a faculty member who is from Morocco who can speak on healthcare disparity.
Mm-hmm.
And you are been very intentional with, like, look, we are going to make these generalists, but we really want to, put a focus on rural healthcare. So, to your point, this program can't be replicated everywhere. There's a handful of places that it would probably work, like Arizona, Las Vegas. They have a lot of land that might see similar things,
On the
but
middle, probably the middle.
yeah, maybe the middle somewhere, like Nebraska.
Yeah.
But I see to your point, and even like there's some points where OT wants to make sure that, like, programs might want to make sure that, and this is on the post-professional side, that they cater to the professional needs of expert clinicians, like where they want to go in their career. So, for example, I actually was looking at Boston University. I had, I was like, I'm going to BU. I'm going to hang out with Karen Jacobs. This is going to be my doctorate. And then I had a conversation with Jenny Stoffel, like battle of two AOTA presidents, two icons in the profession. And Jenny Stoffel was like, look, Eric, I know you want to go to BU, but I think you should give UWM a chance because we are now rolling out this brand new program that is assistive technology and universal design for post-professional doctorate, for post-professionals.
Yeah.
And we want you to be a part of that. And then I looked at the curriculum. I was like, well, of course I'm going to do this. It only makes sense. This is my avenue, my line. And of course I would want to go to this program. So, and what a beautiful program. I'm so thankful that Jenny
Shout
was
out
able.
UWM.
Yeah, UWM.
Well, and BU, because I went to BU with Karen.
With Karen, yeah. So anyway, so kind of back to it. I do think that I think there's opportunities, and I think this is why the ACOTE standards exist, is to make sure there's things that exist. And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize too, and maybe we can kind of transition to theories, models, frames of reference, and why there's like a big kind of push for these things. But to your point, but for this, I think that some things that people might not understand if you're not in academia is that when ACOTE rolls out the standard will tell you something, and that means you have to put it in your curriculum, not once but twice. So the B standards.
Well, B standards, yes.
The B standards. So the B
Yes.
standards is kind of like what needs to be in your classes.
Actually, you
how you need
don't. You don't have to do it twice. You
I
can do
thought
it
it was.
once.
I thought it was
No,
a.
it used to be, well, now it's the assessment of that. Most programs do it twice. It doesn't, I
Okay.
don't, you know what? Fact check. I think it's
Yeah.
only because I think we have a few standards. For example, your class targets you could tell I'm not an
Well, assistive
orthotherapist.
technology and
No, the tens, like what is that?
physical agent modalities.
That's
Yeah.
only done in your class.
Yeah.
We'll find out, but I think,
Well,
but it's what you're saying is you interpret it and you must document the assessment of it. Yes.
yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but there are requirements where it's like you have to go in here. So I think this is a really cool point too, and a little bit of a transition that I think that we can all agree. And I think that anybody listening, any educator listening, and like shout out to ALC that's happening. Hopefully you guys are listening to this before your meeting on Tuesday of next week. Shout out to ALC. Talk about this there. I think we can all agree that we would do better as academicians to offer more hands-on learning for our students. To really engage with them, to prepare for them, to practice with them, to be like intentional with them. Yes, lectures, yes, these things, but put somebody in front of me, make me transfer that person, make me get on the floor with this child, make me make a splint, make me do all these things, right? More. Because repetition,
Yes.
builds education, understanding, synthesizing of this information. And even like cases, even like practicing things, if you're looking at like the IRM, the intentional relationship model, and you're saying, hey, you have a patient, we're going to do a case study. One student's going to be the patient, one student's going to be the therapist, and they're going to like be really cranky, and they're going to have to figure out how to break that down.
Yeah.
And then swap them. And, like, hey, you have to take the instructor approach today instead of empathy approach. And I want to see let's see if that works, and then maybe the other students, like, you can only, agree to do this if they go to empathy, and so like, this is like opportunities to like use models in practice.
Yes.
This is how it would work. Let me show you that.
You've made me think of a lot of things. So the first thing, and we actually talked about it, but I will say it so it's so loud and
Yeah.
clear. Oh, first of all, just in case folks don't know what ALC stands for, I just realized that's a possibility. AOTA's Academic Leadership Council. So those members of that community are your program directors, your fieldwork folks, and your capstone folks. So there's a meeting twice a year where all those folks try to get together as best they can and talk about the big hot topics. Those topics always, probably the biggest one everybody wants to know about is enrollment trends and all of that. So we get that report, and then other trending topics. So that's what that is. As far as OT frame of reference and OT theory, so is there a lot in it in a curriculum? That's 100% based on someone's curriculum.
Yeah.
I would say in our program, we do not have a theory course. We absolutely have, like, actually you're teaching one now, like you just alluded to. You learn this theory in the context of doing it in a different course. You're not just pushing out lectures on different theories. But what I want to point out and what I think is super important, do I think it can be overcooked? 100%. Nobody wants to learn a bunch of theories.
Yeah.
But what is important that I think should always be conveyed is our theories define us as OTs. So when we're sitting in spaces where we feel uncomfortable and we're wondering, or others are wondering, who are you? Where do you fit in? Our theories are what ground us in that.
Mm.
And I think that message is lost when we're so, we can get either overworked in theories or if that's not communicated. So, for example, if you're a pediatric therapist and you really lean into Jane Eyre's and the sensory integration model
Yeah.
and our framework, and you're going to be working in that context, you need to know that model and you need to be confident of your evidence in that model. Whatever that evidence is a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation, but that's what makes you distinct. And that's what makes you confident as an OT. Our biomechanical folks are very confident in that. They're very easy. They can speak about it very easily. Our people in our other areas, sometimes it's a little wishy-washy, but if
Yeah.
folks can, and you'll even hear clinicians be like, oh, or whoever say, I don't really know what theory I use. Well, go back, think about that.
Yeah.
Because that theory, even if you're like, on this, I do IRM, but I'm also this therapist, that's fine. But it does define us as OTs. And that,
Yeah.
the fact that we're questioning why are we doing it at all, at the same time, we're saying we have a hard time identifying ourselves. Maybe these two need to be married, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
really do need to know your OT based theorists
Yeah.
so that you can confidently communicate your value.
Yeah.
So, and it, like I said, we learned it, different theories have changed since then, the oldies but goodies maintain, your mohos and your
Yeah.
others. But I
Yeah.
just think I get it. It's boring, but it really is the foundation on what makes you an OT
Yeah.
practitioner. And if you can weave it into,
Yeah.
okay, like you just said, we're going to do this. We're going to do this exercise. You're going to remember IRM. You're going to do this, and then you're going to shift to this. That's teaching it within the context of practice. And that's all
What
the
we're
time.
shooting
That's
for.
fine.
Yeah.
That's what we're
Yeah.
shooting for. Are we shooting for, here's a lecture on IRM? No. Is that what happens? Of
Sure.
course, that
Yeah.
happens anywhere.
Yeah. Um, so let me shift. You mentioned earlier um, about numbers.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned about trends in applications. You mentioned trends in OT admissions. One of the things that our former guest spoke about was that, of course, we're having issues because our numbers are so far down. Can you speak on that a bit? Like,
Yes.
is there a reason why the numbers are down for OT
Yeah,
school? Like that you know?
yeah, there's a bunch of reasons, and it's in the same report. The reasons are listed on why this trend is happening. So, yes, numbers are down. About, gosh, I don't even know. I would say more
Tens
than
tens
5
of
years
thousands.
ago. Well, no, more than 5 years ago, we would be in these ALC meetings. I just can't picture the date. And our leadership would put the information on the wall. Here's our numbers. Here's our numbers. However, when these 2008, we're going to get the impact of 2008 is going to hit us. And there was a big, all of this, the numbers of humans going to college will go down. And that
What
has
was in
been known.
2008?
I
It
just
was the
remember
financial crisis.
it was. And I think, what year are our kids born?
2001, 2004, 2007, 2009.
Not actual kids. No,
Oh,
like
oh, you mean our students? I'm talking about my real kids.
cute, but no, no, our student, like
Yeah, our students were probably born, between like
okay, it's
2005 and
2026. They're
2010.
right. So we're just starting, especially it's really so there's a population shift around this period where the
Mm,
population of individuals going into college has gone down. Our population is not what it
mm,
was. There's a reason it's called baby boomers, right? Yes,
yeah,
there were way more people, our generation, which is the fabulous X, we are less people. So have our numbers gone down? Yes, but only after reaching astronomical heights.
Yeah.
So are there more OT schools? Yes, but that's also beginning to shift as needs shift.
Yeah.
The OTA programs, there's a lot of conversation on how to leverage the right path for the right student, which way they want to go. And our OTA programs are impacted by legislation around, well, there's a lot of things, but
Sure.
that report talks about these numbers. It's not solely a disinterest in OT. It is not solely a return on investment issue. Partially, it probably is. Gen Z in particular, and as we move into Gen Alpha, are very focused and aware and conscious on return on investment. If I spend X amount of money, am I going to get that return? So that matters. And I think then it means for us as institutions that we need to be mindful of how much it is to go to school. The and if you saw like the top programs listed for OT schools are some of the most expensive ones.
Yeah. In the 200,000s.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yes. So, okay. So I'm just going to put this out there because this is going to hit admissions. The change if it's not rectified, the change in how student loans are distributed based on professional identity. And, there's a whole big blow up on the internet about my degree isn't considered professional. Well, it wasn't in the first place. Neither was nurse. Like it's just somebody made up these decisions that are in an office where nobody talked to us. There's an advocacy effort. So that's gonna cue you to talk about AOTA in a minute.
Yeah.
But the piece around access to education for OT students and PT students and some of our other colleagues with this cap on their education, that will 100% change the enrollment trends. It's going to shift people's ability to go to certain schools. It's going to shift institutions' response. What can we do to get students? And institutions have to have environments where they are able to support students because they're not going to be able to even take out loans. If it's $200,000, they're already maxed out because the total number includes their undergrad as well. So that's an important piece to note. As a general, like everything, not just OT, everything is changing. And I just think that it's not just OT, and there's some bigger things at play here. So it's worth checking out.
Well, and I will say, listen, this is a small plug to our program, and if you are an interested OT student, I would apply to our program. But we offer a program that is sub 100. Matter of fact, I think it's around 60, 70,000. 7,000? No. So,
oh my God. You did it.
Yeah. I slept at it.
So that's, I think, the number without including, like, we like to include the whole cost of what it costs to live. So that's actually, from that perspective, if you go to a school that's not in New York City, LA, some of our like even in our case, Dallas, Austin, Houston, that costs more. So that number scooches up. So, to get an apartment with a couple buddies at our institution is going to be way less because it's just a smaller
community.
And it's just
cost of living is cheaper. Well, I mean, and now, like we would offer, like, for example, like we would offer our program sub 100, and if you go for a doctorate, and you could go down the street, and I won't name any schools, but
in any direction,
it would be
actually
in any direction. It's going to be well over 100,000. Sometimes for the master's programs, over 100,000. And I know, like, just in my own neighborhood, there's a school that is like in the 160 to 170,000s. And so, like, I think, like, there are, if you want to be an OT, there are schools out there that you can still go to that will afford you a great education, but also keep the costs down. And
Mhm.
I'm really proud of us to have that, you know.
It was intentional.
Yeah. So,
It was It's by
um,
design.
well,
Yeah,
okay, so you mentioned AOTA
I
and
did.
advocacy and why these things are important. And I think this is something that we should probably just chat about for a minute before we, end the conversation. But I know that, like, I mentioned this in the conversation with Todd. It's like as members, a lot of times we think of like the tangible things like your age, access to research, the OT practice you get in the mail. It's cute. It's got a lot of like really nice things. What are OTs doing? What's kind of new? What's
Used
the
to be where you
trends?
look up your job. You know that? Like
Yeah,
back
you
when
could like look for job listings. Yeah,
like in the
there's probably still
90s,
job listings in there. I bet.
I
Like
don't know,
there's
AOTA,
somebody that's
shout out.
always
I don't
hiring.
know. I never
Yeah,
look in the back anymore. I know that continuing ed's back there, but back when I was
yeah,
literally looking to wanting to be a OT, I remember going in the back like there are
yeah,
jobs. Okay, I
yeah.
could do this.
So there's other things, but to your point with advocacy, the biggest reason I believe that it's important to be a member
Mhm.
is because if we have more members, we have more footing, we have
Mhm.
more grounds to be able to make huge changes in a healthcare system.
Mhm.
And whether that be for reimbursement or like in Texas, if you guys don't know, we are not recognized as mental health providers in Texas, which is crazy to me
Well,
because
we can't
OT,
bill.
we can't bill for it. Yeah, we can be healthcare providers. Sure. Yeah. Like I'll do mental health, but I cannot bill for
I
healthcare
do.
services. Yeah.
No.
So, but our membership numbers for Texas is like minuscule. I want to say like 1%, 2% of the OTs in Texas are Texas OT Association members. And how do we fight at the Congress level to make sure that we're recognized as healthcare providers in the state of Texas if our representation is so small? And then at the bigger level,
Mhm.
because I mean, at the bigger level, that we're on Capitol Hill and we're doing Hill Day and we're trying to advocate for the profession and trying to like look at caps on reimbursement and all these things. Like it's gonna hold a lot more water if it's more of us holding our hands together.
So it's a super important point. If you have the time, okay, I'm not trying to rattle too many people, but I think it's a really important point. But if you are passionate and you are an influencer or you have a space, you should 100% be connecting people to come together. Whatever so whatever that looks like within communities, but in our community, if you have a passion about, for example, your past guest has a really big passion about OT education, be a member, be a
Yeah,
part of that conversation while getting on the internet and getting people to talk about it. That's step one. And
yeah,
that's grassroots. That's step one.
yeah,
If you're a member and you're able to say, you're able to come together, it's these influencing groups and say, these are the people I talk to. That's awesome. Let's hear more about that. Leverage
mm,
that. Because we, so when people, if we're going to be honest, why people are like, well, how come PT got it? Well, because they've got numbers and they've got people in the association, and because they have people in the association, they have the money. And that's just a
yeah,
reality. There's just
yeah.
more people are doing
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the money that's raised through membership goes to like our lobbyists who will stand, as, people that really push the interests of the profession.
They
So
normally
like,
pick out they do that report also at ALC. See you
oh,
Tuesday. But the report will be given, and they'll itemize all the and you can actually go online and see it, all the legislation that has some sort of impact on OT practice or OT access or what. And
yeah,
but they'll list them out, and they'll list out the people that have written it or supporting it, and then they'll lobby. And that, like it or hate it, that is the country we live in, and
yeah,
that is the way it works. So if
hmm,
you want to be heard, You got
That's
to
the way to
have
do
a
it.
seat at the table, and to have a
Yeah.
seat at the table, you got to join,
Yeah.
or at least
Wow.
engage. Don't,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Shannon, I love this conversation. You and I could go on for hours about this stuff, and I love not knowing things so that I can learn more, and I love being able to tap into people who know more than me. Before I let you go, Shannon, it is time for our rapid fire round, and I'm super jazzed because I know you a little bit more. I know questions that I want to ask you very
Okay.
specifically. So, question number
Okay.
one: what is your favorite baseball team?
Oh, Milwaukee Brewers. Go Brew Crew.
That was the easy question. Second question: who is the best baseball team?
Milwaukee Brewers. Go Brew Crew.
I
Who's
knew
my
you were going to
favorite
say that,
player?
which we both know is the Los Angeles Dodgers, but you
Oh,
know
we
what?
don't. We
We
don't.
can
That's
disagree
why
on
we're
that.
different.
That's why we're
That's what,
different.
just like programs, that's
Yeah,
why we're different. We could agree to disagree. And we can be an awesome team without having all the money.
it's
Anyway,
true.
I digress.
Yeah, digress. So, third question.
Okay.
You've traveled all over the world, and I know that. Well, I mean, at least a lot over to Europe. If you had one country that
Mm,
you could set sail and live in besides the United States,
mm.
which country would that be?
I mean, depends on my mood. I don't, there's a places I haven't gone yet that I think that would answer this question, but I love the vibe of Argentina,
Mm.
and I love obviously Spain, and I love the reason probably an island. I don't know.
An
I could tell
island.
you what, yeah, because I'm a beach girl. I'm a
Yeah.
beach baby. I was born by the coast. So, the fact is, I can't honestly answer that question because the answer is I would return back home to South Carolina.
Mm.
And if I could go anywhere or when the
That's where it would
time
be.
comes,
Sure.
that's probably where it would be. And I would probably regret it because why did I leave in the first place? But
Come back home. Yeah.
you always come back home.
All right. Next question.
Hmm.
You have an opportunity to meet your celebrity crush. Who is it?
Oh, for a long time, it's Owen Wilson. I think he's great.
Yeah.
But I also would love to meet younger Brad Pitt from
Mm.
Legend of the Fall.
Mm. Yes.
Also, yeah, that's a good one. I also watched something recently where I forget. I don't know. If I'm going to be honest, I'm not too much of I'm not easily starstruck.
Mm.
And so I used to be, but then I think as I did this work more and people are just humans and we're all,
Yeah.
just doing the thing, I got less starstruck. Now, if I'm going to tell you, and this could invite people to check them out, but if there was someone that I would want to meet that isn't like cute celebrity or like,
Yeah.
like a
Whatever.
movie star, is my so that I'm a runner and I
Mm.
love there's a particular individual that I love to follow, and his name is Tommy Rivers Pusney.
Mm.
And if you want to Google him, but he was just an amazing athlete, is still an amazing athlete, but ended up getting significant cancer
Mm.
and was in the hospital for a very long time, lost all of his skill set, is a PT,
Mm.
and came back, and now he's a trainer still now, and is just has this renewed sense of like loving life and valuing every step. It's just very
Wow.
much like how we see the other
Yeah.
side of rehab is now encapsulated in this elite runner.
Yeah.
And now he, like I think he just did the Boston last week, and we're talking
Incredible.
about someone with like a 25, I could be wrong, fat check, 25 to 30% availability of lung usage
Mm.
after his lung cancer.
Wow.
So that's someone I really would want to meet, to be like, you have inspired me not only at a personal level to Even when I don't want to do it, if you can do it, I can do it, and I'm
Yeah.
going to do it. And a professional level of what I do as a therapist matters. This person is back doing what he loves. And I know he had an OT and recovery because he was in significant rehab. So that would actually be the answer, because that's a meaningful,
Yeah.
it would just be amazing. That I'd probably be starstruck, and I probably wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to ask him,
You're like, I don't know what to say. What do I do with my
hey,
hands? Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I
Mine's
like you a
definitely
lot.
mine's definitely Jennifer Lawrence, for the record. So any contacts out there
Oh,
to my girl Jayla, I just want to hang out. I think she's super cool.
she
That's
is
all I
really
want.
cool. She's super down to earth.
Yeah, totally. All
And I
right,
don't
next
think she
question.
bought into the
Mm,
Hollywood, like she
ah,
purposely
she's kind
set
of like a
boundaries.
regular human. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, next question. You ready? Favorite video game?
You know that, but
I
I'll
know
say
what
it
it
for the
is.
greater
I'm gonna
group.
let you say it for the group.
I'm a throwback to my college years. The place where I played this doesn't even exist anymore. It was in the student union at Clemson, and I used to play Tekken on a real arcade game and loved the player Nina.
I love that. All
That was
right,
my
so,
character.
all right, last question for you, and this is gonna be a fun one. You ready?
Yeah, I know it's not a fun one. I know it's not.
What is your favorite theory, framework, or model?
Okay, so theories are dumb. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's not good. My favorite theory in practice, and what I really live by, and how I really uh do the thing that is OT, is IRM.
Mm,
And I just do. I actually just live my life through
yeah,
the lens of IRM.
it's
And
so good.
so yeah, so I mean, my book is beaten up. I just love it. So shout out to those folks. And if you
Renee
don't know
Taylor.
what, yes, if you don't know what that is and you're a student, love it. Check it out.
Mm,
If you're a clinician and you forgot, go back.
mm,
Go find that grounding, because that's so distinctly OT. We
totally.
are the folks that um, are very intentional
Mm.
in our work.
Shannon, it has been such a pleasure having you on, and I am thrilled to be able to work beside you every day and to learn from you. But thank you for the insight here. Thank you for some clarification. Thank you for giving us, some more layers of understanding of OT education and how it works and kind of what goes into play. And I'm really looking forward to learning more about this, along the way. But thanks again. You've been so great on the show. Everybody give her a hand. Clap, 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 clap.
Thanks for having me. And obviously, these are just my opinions. By all means, there will be lots of people that have a lot to contribute that may have different thoughts.
Awesome. And if you do have thoughts, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share some questions, ask some questions, all those things. We'd love to chat about them. So, all right, that's it for the OT Unleashed podcast today, guys. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to having you on the next time. Peace.